humans, and welcome to the Chapter 8 Diverse Societies in Africa chapter. We're going to be talking about a variety of different African countries and societies, and there are a total of 54 countries in modern-day Africa, the second largest continent in the world. All right, we're going to be going through some stuff pretty quickly. Guys, here's the map you got to know on the test. You got to know where Lake Victoria is, okay? You got to know where the Kalahari is, the Orange River, and the Congo River. I'm going to keep it real with you. I'll probably have a few more things boxed out on there other than just the ones you need to know. So make sure you are aware of where those are. Lake Victoria is the biggest lake in Africa, home to Victoria Falls. And Africa has a very, very diverse climate as far as, in relation to where you're at on the equator. And essentially, Africa, if you were to take a map and fold it along the equator, it goes the following. You have desert, okay? Then it leads into what's called Sahel, which is like a wasteland. Then you have savannas. Then you have jungle, okay? Then you have more savannas, okay? Then it goes back to Sahel. Then you got the desert again. Now you also have your really steep, rigid coastlines with massive waterfalls and peaks. Guys, here's the definitions you need to know for Chapter 8. There you go. Pause it to copy those if you need to. Pretty basic. There's only a couple. All right, so talking about Africa, so they got coastal plains also, which I didn't mention when I was showing you the initial map. There are lots of dry deserts. And so it's all depending on where you're living at in relation to the equator. But the jungles get about 200 inches of rain per year. We also saw a video that showed bioluminescent fungus. It was actually kind of cool. It's like this stuff. It's called the jungle's natural cleaning system. And so it basically goes through and cleans up the jungle. It's kind of neat. And it's called chimpanzee fire by the locals. All right. Now, people found it to be very difficult to actually grow things in the jungle region because of the fact that you have bugs that kill, livestock that you rely on. So it's hard to have livestock, but it's also hard to grow things because surprisingly, it's actually, a lot of people don't realize this, but the soil's not very nutrient rich in the jungle. Okay. And so they had to seek other places to grow crops or find ways to grow crops around where the jungle area is. Okay, 4,600 miles east to west. That's a large continent, guys. Rivers drain into the Atlantic Ocean and Indian Oceans. Okay, not the Pacific Ocean. I don't know why that was there, but obviously I crossed it off. They could travel up some rivers, but it was very dangerous. This is basically what I was just telling you at the beginning. Desert, wasteland, savanna, jungle, savanna, wasteland, desert. So if you wonder what those letters are, Sahara's in the north, about the size of the U.S., growing every year. Desert's expanding. South is the Kalahari Desert. That's number 3. Both deserts are actually getting bigger. That's called desertification, which is affecting wildlife and all kinds of other stuff. Of course, the Sahara has been getting bigger since the end of the last ice age, so that shouldn't surprise us. In Central Africa, there are very, very rich, dense rainforests, trees up to 150 feet tall. One of the deadliest things that people discovered is the mosquito and the tsetse fly. The mosquito is the deadliest animal in the world, kills more people than any other animal on planet Earth. Tsetse fly causes sleeping sickness. I've heard some people say, oh, that's something I want. I love sleeping. And no, you really don't, because the sleeping sickness gives you a deadly fever and also prevents you from sleeping. So it does actually the opposite of what it says, and it can kill you. So it's very, very deadly. So the tsetse fly is really disgusting looking. I showed everybody a picture of it. You can look it up on Google if you want. I don't have one on this slideshow. I knew I was forgetting something. So savanna is number 5, 40% of the continent. Most people want to live in the savanna because it's the grassy plains, volcanic soil, great for growing coffee and cocoa and other stuff like that, which is the cocoa beans are like the highest producing for money, the highest producing crop in Africa today, which actually surprised me because I thought it might be coffee, but But yeah, the mountainous soil, it's actually it's really, really good for growing crops because of the volcanic eruptions that have taken place over time. Yeah, so unfortunately, you do have the aspect of like sometimes you will get too much annual rainfall, flooding, other stuff, and it actually strips the soil from crops or soil from the land, nutrients from the soil, which prevents crops from growing in it. That's what I'm trying to say, ladies and gentlemen. It's getting late. So looking at this, early Africans are going to be making tribal masks. These masks are used by the Bantu, a lot of different tribes, to represent like a bridge to a spiritual realm. Early African societies were not Christian or Muslim. They believed in something called animism. And animism was the belief in spirits and guardian spirits and stuff like that. So they made these masks. We also did an African tribal mask creation project. So make sure you check that out and turn that in for 30 points. But the first African civilization to really emerge in West Africa, and obviously Egypt is the oldest African civilization, are the Nok. They were named after the artifacts. The location of the artifacts were near an African village in Nigeria known as Nok. That's why they called them that. They lived in Nigeria and then, spread out to different parts of Africa, around, say like 100 AD. We don't exactly know, but we do know that around the same time that the Nok disappeared is when the Bantu came onto the scene. So we think that the Bantu are probably related to the Nok. There's also some evidence to suggest that the Bantu came from Nigeria as well. And the reason I keep saying Bantu, even though I haven't explained it, they're like one of the pretty much the major group of all ancient African history. And so the Nok created a lot of pottery sculptures. They smelted iron. And number 17 is iron smelting. Sorry that the ink kind of got messed up there. And they did not do written history. They preserved it through griots or storytellers. Okay, that was number 16. But they figured out independently how to smelt iron. They made the outside of the chimney out of slag. Okay, so just to give you an idea here, and we've already done this labeling. It's very similar to the one that the Hittites used, essentially the exact same thing. But what they would do is they would make a little chimney and they would throw hot coals in, and then they would push iron ore. So iron ore you're going to label over here. Hot coals in the middle, and it would cook the iron ore. It would cook all the impurities, which would settle in the bottom, called slag. That's where you're going to put slag. You're going to label it there. Then it would take the iron ore out after it cooled, and they would be able to reheat it and shape it into weapons and farming equipment. And the Bantu were going to do the same thing. So we think that the Bantu probably borrowed this from the Nok. Then they would take the slag and make like really cool chimneys and stuff out of it to make more iron. So they had really cool figurines and statues. That was kind of their main thing, more so than mask making and stuff early on. We don't really know much about them because none of it's really written history, and a lot of it's from these sculptures and stuff. Other than the Egyptians, the Axumites are the only ones really in ancient Africa to have a real consistent kind of writing system. The Cushites will as well, but they're going to kind of actually borrow from the Egyptians. All right, and so that gives you an idea where they were located between the Niger River, and today the people are still finding these really cool figurines. You can see field archaeology there, taking layer by layer of dirt. You have a mosque here. It's a Muslim majority area now. The biggest city they built was called Jene, and it's located in Niger, about 250 BC, 50,000 people. Got some really cool mud-plastered huts, and they grew rice and cool stuff like that. So the Bantu came from Nigeria, as I said, possibly related to the Nok. Translation is the people, because most people in Central and South Africa do trace their descendancy from the Bantu. Probably they left Nigeria because of overpopulation, maybe it's because the desert was expanding, but basically for number 10, to deal with problems, they just adapted. I mean, they used local farming techniques. They intermarried with locals, fought with their iron weapons, used their iron weapons to farm, or used their iron tools to farm. When they were on cliff sides, they might have used terrace farming. They just adapted to their environment super well, and a third of Africans can trace their ancestry to this group. Now, today, the most famous of all the Bantu languages is Swahili, but there's a bunch of others. Zulu, all the different tribes, such as the Zulu and ones we're familiar with, they all come from the Bantu. And so how did this change things? Well, language change was big. They brought Bantu languages, population increase, and of course they brought iron smelting to all parts of Africa. And looking here, obviously, so the Bantu are taking up a pretty good portion of Africa. As you can see, I also have another, I forgot I had this on here, because it basically, when they would cook, the Bantu would cook the iron ore, it would leave behind pure iron, and that's why I crossed out O2. And so one of the things with the Bantu, and actually you're going to want to get a sheet because it's changed a little bit since I created this slide, but the project, the Bantu have very, very colorful masks and beads and stuff. There's a color pattern of what it all means, all that kind of stuff. And so yeah, it's a really cool, like a lot of them will wear like really cool necklaces made of beads and stuff, and red, orange, and blue are very, very common. And yeah, so the Bantu and their descendants have really, really cool style and stuff. But that's why we kind of did this project to celebrate the Bantu culture. And so just here's a few examples. Like red is life and blood. Now, I will say the colors on the masks mean a lot, but to some degree, it is kind of debatable what some of this stuff might mean. It depends on who you talk to. But that's an Ashanti mask down there. This is an example. You can actually find this video on YouTube, guys going up and taking food from lions. Just some people on the savannah surviving the way they survive best. And oftentimes you'll see people like in Kenya and other places on the savannas living in boma shelters to protect themselves from wild animals. We're going to kind of have to fly through Aksum pretty fast because I don't have much time left. But yeah, so Aksum is on the other side of Africa. They're not really connected to the Bantu in any way, but they're actually closer to Egypt. As you can see, they build stuff. They're a combination of these Arabs basically coming from Saudi Arabia and marrying Cushite farmers. They spoke a language called Gez, okay, that the Arabs actually spoke. They were like master builders, built all kinds of stone stuff. So it's these two groups kind of combining. These guys came over here, intermarried with them, and they defeated a major city called Meroe. Before that, they were just kind of nomadic farmers and stuff. They defeated Meroe. They started setting up trade outposts. You can read about all the stuff they traded along the Silk Road. You can kind of see where they were located. You can also see where I got this, of course, on Wikipedia, this picture here. Yeah, if you look at that, you can kind of see it is a place where all these trade routes were. They may have traced their origins to King Solomon and a queen named the Queen of Sheba, who was a queen of Ethiopia. They had a son. And it's possible that this son came to rule South Arabia, and that son was, possibly where these guys come from. That's possible, but we don't know for certain. Agilis was the capital. You can see all the things that they exported and imported to every region of the world, really. They bartered for gold. They had contact with Egypt, so they did build things like the Egyptians built, including obelisks. You can have a look at this map, see all the stuff they traded. Their king, Ezana, was the one who converted to Christianity because his teacher was Christian as a kid. So he converted to Christianity, made Greek the primary trading language, and Christianity the official religion. They expanded into Kush and conquered it under him. Prior to him, they worshipped a god named Maraim. They were a monotheistic religion. They also did believe in some spirits and stuff, and some of them did worship Ares, the god of war. But the monotheism might have come from their connection to the Jewish people. So today, millions of people in Ethiopia are Christians. That's one of the long-lasting achievements of Ezana. They're the only African kingdom, ancient African kingdom in that region, besides Egypt, to develop a written language. They use terrace farming. Coin said, "May the country be satisfied." And there you go, guys. That's the final one. I'm out of time. Have a good day and grieve.